Hello, welcome or welcome back to my podcast. My name is Arielle, and this is Feeling My Feelings, where I finally feel my feelings after years of not feeling safe to. And today I just kind of wanted to do another just, mind dump. Or I guess you could say I really just want to feel my feelings today and not just intellectualize them. And I think it's funny because lately I've really been sort of recalibrating my body, which I think is just my way of saying I've been regulating my nervous system and sort of quote unquote rewiring my body to move in ways that feel safer and not in ways that were triggered by survival mode. And I think it's been a long time coming, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how I got here. I think that, and I'm probably going to go all over the place like I usually do, but I think that it's funny because I was thinking lately about how, I have gotten certified in spiritual life coaching. I'm currently finishing up Reiki and sound training. I'm just kind of practicing. And then I'm just kind of like learning about nervous system somatic healing. And I'm learning a shit ton right now, but I also believe that I am going to be capping the learning part because right now I'm more so heavy in the practice part. So, and it's really self-practice. It's really stuff that I've been sort of self-coaching in certain ways. I have been like just playing my singing bowls for myself. I have been Reikiing myself, which is what you do for like the first 21 days or so after you are level 1 attuned. And I also just got level 2 attuned. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I noticed that, like it is for everybody, you kind of like heal yourself first. And I noticed for me that like there has been a really well done, I want to say like kudos to me, but a sort of like a trajectory of awareness to sort of like body embodiment and healing that really makes sense to me. And I want to share that I thought it's really interesting that all of a sudden now we're starting to realize that, or at least I think a lot of people are starting to realize that talk therapy doesn't feel enough. Doesn't mean it's not important. I think it just means it's not where we stop anymore. And I want to say that that's evolved. And I found it so interesting because I think that as someone who thinks a lot and who ended up isolating and sort of like just kind of sat and analyzed people for years of her life, I think awareness was not hard for me. But I will say that a lot of therapy, especially like traditional, like how it was first made, is a lot of just trying to change your thoughts abruptly. It's a lot of like, literally psychoanalyzing. It's a lot of feeling almost like a lab rat when you are talking about your emotions. And I'm not saying, I know before I've talked a lot about therapy in ways that don't make it seem favorable, but I will just say I think I was just trying to find, first of all, my right type of therapist, and second of all, I think I was realizing that I needed something more, because I think the way that therapy and mental health has evolved, like generations of people have been really stuck on the why. Why do we do the things we do? And then a lot of clients or patients have gone to therapy to just understand the why. And I think it was this understood thing for a while that as long as we knew the why, as long as we could be, unfortunately, intellectualizing it, we could control it. And I can't tell you like how many therapists I've gone to where I'd be like, I have a feeling that I need to express. And they'll be like, well, you have this pattern in your family and this is why it happened. And I'll be like, I have a feeling that I want to express. And it's funny because I think after years of most people sort of starting to understand mental health, like especially millennials really brought in, like was I feel like our generation really started to take care of ourselves and to heal ourselves emotionally. I think that it became more understood and we all started using psychology terms a lot more. And it was almost like people evolved and got smarter. We got more emotionally and mentally self-aware. But what's funny is we don't stop there. I think recently what has been a buzzword is nervous system dysregulation and regulating your nervous system. And the reason why that's happening is because we are finally bringing it into the connection to the body. We were so focused on thoughts. And now we're like, oh, maybe we should bring this into how our thoughts literally affect our bodies. And we also bring into sort of like somatic healing into like, I know there's been things like EMDR. I know there's been like cognitive behavioral therapy, but this bigger sort of thing of like your nervous system as a system needs to sort of rewire is crazy. You know, not crazy. I mean like it's wow, that's awesome. And now that I've also learned coaching and a lot of the sort of deeper connection to the body that you focus on in the way that I was taught coaching, like I find that that would probably end up being the next step for people after after we ingrain the nervous system regulation thing. I mean, it's the same thing, but I want to say that for me at least, in the way that I feel like I'm going to end up doing coaching, I'm going to sort of take it down to even closer. And it's just like, what's your relationship to the feelings that come up in your body, to when things happen in your body? Like, can you actually, you know, aside from just calming yourself down, which is important, can you take hold of or not really take hold, but can you embrace the feelings? I mean, in a lot of what we've done in coaching and what a lot of people have done before is like parts work, or it's like, talking to your like nervous Nelly, like outside of you, or like, I think stuff like that, which I actually myself have not done in therapy before. And I'd love to find a therapist who could do that. But those sorts of things allow you to have a deeper relationship with your body as opposed to constantly trying to sort of police it. So currently, just putting it out there, I did start therapy again. I tried really hard to find a therapist that had a sort of somatic focus. I really like her so far. We talk a lot about nervous system regulation, and what I like that she does, which I've gone to a couple of therapists now, and this is the first person that does it. She does not stop and try to change me right away when I talk about hard things that have happened to me. And I'm just kind of like, why is this the first person I've met who doesn't do that or who does that? Like, and I found that it's just like, it's kind of crazy how much we just decide to heal something first as opposed to listen to it. And I've been noticing that just the way that I've been learning things this year, and I've been like sort of healing myself as practice, I noticed that everything had to be holistic. Like I noticed that I used to dissociate a lot, as I always say. And now that I'm not dissociating, I am finally hearing out my feelings. This is how this podcast got started, but I wasn't able to get super deep into my actual body and my feelings until maybe this year. And now that I have, they say when you finally wake up to sort of like the trauma or whatever that happened, that a lot of anger comes out. And boy, it has this past year, because I started to realize that my body was not as limited as my environments wanted it to be. Like a lot of us realize we got to speak out more, or like we can speak out more. We have more abilities. We can overall, this is the whole point of what I wanted to say today, we can trust our bodies and know that they're not malfunctioning. I have happened upon so many different versions of this realization, but when you have an emotion, it's just there to balance you out, or it's just telling you what wants balance. And we have been constantly trying to police our emotions like the emotions are the bad guy, and they're not. I noticed that once I listen to my emotions, I feel better. When I get to feel sadness, my body feels validated and it calms down. When my body gets a chance to speak, my nervous system feels regulated. And also, when emotions come up and I listen to them and I allow them to play out and for them to be expressed, I build safety within my body and I rebuild that connection between my mind and the rest of my body. You know what I always hated was whenever someone said, don't be too in your head or you're overthinking. I think what that really is first of all, first of all, I like how I don't like this, but I'm just saying it's as if we have to blame something for something being wrong. It's like, oh, well, something's wrong with your mind. Your mind is doing too much. And the rest of your body is perfect, but your mind is doing too much. And it's just like, why did you need to put down your mind for trying to do something when the rest of your body did not feel safe? Your mind was just trying to do what it could to compensate for the feelings of unsafety that the rest of your body had, that the rest of your body could not engage in. The rest of your body wants to do stuff and wants to work with the mind, but the environments and how we're raised and how society is doesn't make us feel safe to do that. We are supposed to be, and we're built to be holistic beings, but we barely use our holistic bodies. And that's what has always sort of been apparent to me. And like, it's funny because, okay, going back to the like your overthinking thing. First of all, we don't have to demonize our minds. And second of all, well, yeah, I think the second of all was your mind is just trying to do what your body doesn't feel safe to do, and that's find safety. And I always thought that, like, whenever someone looks at a nervous or an anxious person and they just go, oh God, this person can't take care of themselves. This person's weak. This person's going to bring me down. This person needs to be fixed. I need to fix her. I need to do something. Like, there's this immediate feeling like this person's below me or something. Or at least that's how I felt. I don't know. Tell me how you feel. But it's just like this sort of immediate, like, oh my God, I can't believe this person's letting themselves be anxious. How dare they? And it's just like, again, you are pinning one thing, you are pinpointing one thing as the bad guy. Like most people pinpoint the mind as the bad guy. And for emotions, most people pinpoint anxiety and stress as the bad guy, but not the entire system. And at some point, we're going to realize your entire body is trying to come together to feel safe, but we're scapegoating one part of it. And we're hyperfixating on just trying to get rid of the one problem when it's not the one thing. Why is it when we try to calm down anxiety, we still have other problems in our lives, but we knew how to be calmer during the other problem, like, sure. But I think that the environments, the lifestyle that you're creating, like the belief systems that you have, your ways of self-regulating, the way that you balance out all parts of your life and your body, I think all of that could do more work. And what happens is your anxiety takes over trying to solve problems that the rest of your body and your environments are not doing. But we always blame the anxiety by itself, the mind by itself. Same thing often happens though when we feel a lot, when we're, too emotional, when you're too sad, when you're too angry, when you're too whatever. It's the same thing. It's not the emotion's fault. The emotion is desperately shouting out, hey, your body does not feel balanced. Something else is not balanced in your life. And I want to scream anger because I'm trying to get this body this message that something is bad. Something doesn't feel right. Something is making me sad. Why do we keep villainizing the emotions? Anyway, so I say that because every time we villainize specific parts of our body or the signal parts of our body, we decide to, just as I said, demonize something in us. We decide that there is some part of us that is just always wrong. We also lose our connection to our bodies. And this is something that I really want to help people with, but first of all, help myself with. Okay, there might be family talking in the background, but anyway, I felt like, I say this all the time, but I feel like I've known this my whole life. And I've just been kind of waiting for everybody, including therapy and like the psychology world and psychology like industry. I don't know what to call it, but the mental health profession. There we go. I've been waiting for them to come to the realization that, oh, maybe we should care about and listen to what the rest of the body feels. And so in this past year, I connected to sort of the spiritual side of me and the reasons behind like why things played out the way they did, why my traumas could be, you know, something that could be alchemized to help in my head, like the way that I understand it, like balance out the karma of the rest of the world and to balance out karma between me and my past lives that were brought over. And on the physical side, I have been really paying attention to the health problems that I've had for years, and I've been uncovering the root causes of them. And it's down to knowing like body movements that will be better for my digestion, or like how I hold up my body, like how I clench my body, and how my nervous system was so dysregulated trying to hold my body up as a hypermobile person. So I've really dug into that. And then I really let myself feel my emotions instead of intellectualizing them so much. Now, granted, I'm still kind of teetering between those two things, which is funny because I think it's being reflected on me currently on this YouTube channel. But like I'll have days where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna hyperfixate on the deeper meaning of this thing, and like, oh my God, everybody, this is why. And then I have days where I'm like, I'm just going to sit and talk about my feelings. And this is me regulating, not regulating. Let's say this is me balancing out both parts of me. And and this is the other thing that I was noticing this year. It's like that I was tapping into each holistic part of my body and getting to know it deeper. So that was on the spiritual side, and then the physical side, and then like the emotional side. I really started to just like sit with myself and talk to these emotions. So this is what I mean when I say I started this self-coach. Like there was a time where I was like, well, I need to start coaching other people right now, which I definitely could. I definitely could, and I think that I will push myself to do sooner and to not just stay in this self-healing realm just by myself for a while. But I think it was okay that for the past couple months I picked up a couple of additional things to help me connect to my own body more first. And so I started to sort of journal, and like I started to sort of type it out. I also did a thing with ChatGPT where I like kind of played out the scenarios, but I was the client, and I think I really needed that. And I started to talk to my anxious Arielle archetype, and like I heard her just say no, I was always aware of everything. I wish you would call me aware Arielle instead of anxious Arielle, because all I was doing was telling you things that no one listened to me about. And so I noticed, for me at least, that a lot of my anxiety was just knowing that my voice would be shut down whenever I said something. Or like I would be, you know, told to shut up. Or I would like be more empathic and show it, and people would feel anxious around that themselves. They'd mask that and they just try to control me. And so the anxious parts of me were like, no, I have something important to say. And this isn't just overdoing it. And I kind of trust that, let's say if I was talking to another person and maybe their anxiety is going down a road where it is now too much, which mine definitely has. Like, I'm sure that at the start of that was a person who said, yeah, but my initial anxiousness was important and no, something wasn't listened to, or I wasn't listened to, you know? I think, if we have like something that we've overdone, that's because some part of us was trying to balance that out our whole lives. Like for me, I think like it's so unfortunate because I just feel like, God, I wanted to feel the rest of the emotions in my body. I wanted the full spectrum of emotion and feeling in my body, and I couldn't do that. And knowing that right now I kind of woke up to the fact that I'm neurodivergent and I'm hypermobile, that means that my body is additionally sensitive. And it probably needs more of that expression and that release. And it does not do well when it just tries to clench or tense up or hold itself back. Like, it actually does worse, and it like makes that overcompensation worse. And like, so for me now, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of like self-coaching myself into building a relationship with each of the emotions that I have in my body. And I noticed that I even went down the sort of like, I guess this might be like, I don't think these are the stages of grief, but this feels like layers of emotions that I'm getting to the core of. So a lot of things started out as anxiety or nervousness. And then underneath that, once I was aware of everything, there was so much anger. Like, I think I got really awakened to a lot of things over the summer to early fall. So I had so much anger come up. And I was glad that it did, and I didn't want anyone to make me feel less angry. I was like, I need the anger right now. And then that passed, as and the reason why it took so long, and I was in like a couple months of anger, because it was like, well, yeah, I'm catching up to my body. Me and my body are having a conversation. We haven't talked in a while. I am meeting her for lunch, and we are we're chatting about all the shit that she was trying to tell me that I was not listening to. And she's like, finally, I've been trying to chat with you about this for years, for your whole life even. And it's funny because, maybe not funny, but I reached a point where the anger has started to settle. I could get re-triggered, but it's like my body is like, no, we get the anger now because we've heard her out. The angry Arielle, I guess. And now I've gotten to a huge core feeling, which is sort of a sadness, or specifically, I would call a heartbreak, really. And at the end of the day, it's like I had this anxiousness. I acknowledged that I had this anxiousness to like be heard, because I knew something was going to take over me, like gonna overtake me. And because that's my trauma, essentially, without breaking it down in detail. Essentially, it's been a lot of feeling controlled, feeling like someone wants to dim my light, feeling like I was never allowed to feel confident in myself, honestly, because it was going to hurt somebody else. And under that, I felt a lot of anger over not being able to live out my life fully. And then underneath that, which I'm feeling now, is a lot of sort of heartbreak and sadness, knowing, God, like, even people who care about me, like, they allow that to happen. Like, there is a sadness and sort of a heartbreak of sort of like, and underneath this was this feeling like, I think I just wanted care and love. and it's sort of like the anxiousness and the anger can still be there sometimes. So right now I'm sitting in this grief, in this sadness of this sort of heartbreak. I don't know what to name her. Is there an alliteration there? A heartbroken Ariel? A like I don't know. But anyway, so I'm sitting in like these heartbroken feelings and knowing that I think this is sort of the deepest bit of the emotional well here, you know? And so now that I've gotten here, even though it's sad, I am really glad that I got to the core. It feels like I wasn't allowed to before, and all these other layers were things that were built up around the core, you know? And so I feel like this is something that I can bring to other people where I'm just kind of like, not that everyone has like perfectly like layered emotions like that. Not that I do either. But I do feel like I would love to do the thing that not a lot of people do, and that's let you like really hear out your emotions, you know? And so, yeah, anyway. So lately I've been kind of doing this, and then I've been realizing that like from the holistic sort of perspective, like, obviously for most of my life the mental awareness was there, even with therapy it was there, and then everything else came literally this year at a deeper level. Like I had been growing in my spiritual awareness, I've been growing in my emotional awareness, I've been growing in my health and stuff. So yeah, everything was kind of touched on a little bit, but I feel like the sort of spiritual awareness piece really kicked everything into high gear and like let me allow myself to go deeper into everything else this past year. Also, sidebar, but I really do follow things like numerology and astrology. And I like both things because it's basically saying, like, the universe is saying, like, the energy evolves every year and that's going to affect you. And I like that idea because, and I think it makes sense because just as, seasons change, like you yourself evolve, people grow, so must energy. And also growth in energy and like how that affects our personal growth. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, in numerology, my numerological personal year, which is sort of like you have your own year, I forget what that's called, but your own numerology year that you were born with. And then you have a year that's sort of like whatever year you're currently in. And for me, well, for everyone, I think you're supposed to take it by like your actual age, like your year by your age. So that's from your birthday to your next birthday. So currently mine is a year 3, which is a lot about like learning. Apparently it's socializing and stuff too, but I take it to mean that it's a lot of like learning, and like I associate it almost with like Gemini or like Mercury, but it's a lot of sort of self exploration and like knowledge gaining, and that's a lot of what I did this year. The year before that, I was like dating a lot. And that's a year 2, which is a lot about partnership and stuff. And yeah, and then my next year, which will be after my birthday is late January, it'll be a year 4, which is more about establishing structures. And I actually do feel, thankfully, that like, because I was like, shoot, am I just like being stuck, like learning a bunch of things and just like picking up too many certifications? I actually think that I'm following the right things that I need to learn at the right pace. And this will cap, and I feel it capping, like the learning part is capping. And I feel that it will kind of wrap up by the time it's my next birthday. And I am starting to find opportunities. For example, like I just finished my like part of my sound training the other weekend, and we were talking about how I could pitch to yoga studios and other places and crystal shops and things, and like create my own sound baths and like do one-to-ones and do like maybe Reiki sound healing at the same time. So I do believe that I'll start really pitching myself and building a solid foundation of hopefully regular like sound healing, like sound bath like sessions. And I feel like I'm starting to actually make the plans that I need to implement for next year. So I am honestly doing that all based on intuitively what feels right in my progression and in my personal evolution. And what's funny is every time I've tried to come up against like the right way to do something, it hasn't stuck. And the thing is okay, here's a couple of things. First of all, I think there is something again having to do with your sort of progressed year, your numerological year. Like, I think this is the year where I got to just expand my knowledge and learn a bunch of things and like kind of sample a bunch of things and like dip into different like I guess programs, social groups, and just do a lot of different things to deepen my perspective on things. I said things like a million times just then. Okay, but anyway, I feel like this was my year to not have established structure or rules, but to just take things in and to just feel it out. And I'm glad that I had that. And I also think in general in my life, I am transitioning out of just like learning things by the book. And it never really worked for me to do that anyway. Like, as I noted, my last like sort of mind dump where I think I operate best intuitively. And in addition to that intuition, it's a lot of like I operate best when, and I think everyone does, but I don't think we realize it, but I operate best when I listen to the progression and like the natural growth of what my body and my soul need. And I think I have been doing really well, I think my whole life with listening to that because at the end of the day, even though it kind of sucks that things didn't move faster for me, or I feel like maybe I could have taken action faster, but I don't think that actually works or that worked for me or that would have worked for me before. I think my life is progressing exactly at a pace that feels correct for my growth. And maybe part of that's my soul contract. But I also just think that I have listened to my feelings and what feels right for a lot of my life. And that's why I feel that I'm not slowed down. I'm not behind. I feel like I'm on the right growth path. So anyway, I do feel like right now I am letting go of just learning someone else's quote unquote right way of doing things. And I'm learning that I do it according to my own personal evolution, you know? And above all, and that's why a lot of what I'm learning at the core of it and the core of sort of how I want to, both heal myself and eventually as I build more like coaching aside from like sound healing and stuff, like actual one-to-one coaching, like I I do feel like there is a part of it where I would really like to talk to somebody about like what about you personally in your life? Like could you, identify like what season of your life are you in? Are you, does it feel the best to just sort of cocoon and learn right now? Does it feel like you are itching to expand more? Are you somewhere in between and you're in a transition, which is me? And like neither are wrong and things can change, or you can go back and forth. But I feel like it gets really confusing, or at least to me, when too many people tell me how to, first of all, live my life, but also how to grow. And this is kind of related to sort of feeling things, like I think, first of all, in order to really evolve and grow, you also have to listen to what your body needs. And that's a lot of, again, emotional processing and healing. You don't have to stop everything to heal. Sometimes you just kind of do things while you heal and it's what heals you, right? But I was thinking of it kind of like I think the more I feel my feelings, like I understand where I'm progressing to because, obviously, but I think had I not had this year where I was like diving deeper into my emotions and wanting to speak with them and also like my spirituality, like I would still be trying really hard to learn, like even I don't know. Like I would have just been like, well, I need a structured trajectory. Like I need to learn someone else's way of doing things. And I would have still felt some sort of like block to my expression and to my creative expression. So I feel like I really think that we, first of all, get to build this relationship to our holistic selves. And again, I mean that to be like, what are we, you know, like spiritually and physically and emotionally and mentally. And I think it's great because I really happened upon this year, but I don't know exactly how I'm funneling all that into something like. But okay, other sidebar things, like other sort of like archetypal sort of things that I've learned. So I started learning human design. That was like a free mini certification course. Yeah. I currently have like 3 or 4, I forget how many. But like that was not paid. That was just kind of like a deeper dive and they were selling you for like a bigger advanced one. But I think I got the basic gist. But I also like the idea of that, and astrology is just kind of like mapping out your actual energy type and like sort of your element type. Because, in astrology, you have your astrological signs. You also have what elements you are: your fiery, your airy, your watery, your earthy. And then in human design, you have like your different energy types, and some of them are more active than others. And then you have other ones like in my spiritual like coaching program, I also learned about like your dharmas or your dosha type. And for me, three guesses what I am. I'm obviously a super like vata, which is really airy type. And then there were other like sort of like archetype quizzes, and like there was one which is like, what is your dharma? And obviously, like for me, I'm very like, I got like visionary, and then I got researcher actually, and then I got artist. So, and I think underneath that was entertainer. And I really identify with all those things. And I noticed that like with all the sort of archetype stuff, everything was telling me like, no, you get to not not have to push yourself a lot. You can sit and sort of intuit and, really like be in tune with like your thoughts and what's coming to you. And a lot of it is also like feeling and like transmuting that into making something, into creating. And for example, for me, my human design, I'm a projector, and I have an emotional authority, which means that I have a lot of emotional waves, which is hilarious because I try to intellectualize it to sort of control it. But I noticed that I really am not somebody who wants to make a snap decision. I'm not, and that's in both my projector archetype and also the emotional authority type. Like, if I jump to action too fast, that doesn't feel right to me. And I know that a lot of people are like, taking action now. And I'm like, I think you are somebody who needs more of that movement to understand things. I need to be more still and to be in tune with myself internally to understand things. And I think there's all mixes and variations of that. But I like to think about what is correct for your own body. And at the end of the day, I think that it's important that you really sit down and listen to each of those emotions that are coming up. Because you can't say as a blanket statement, for example, that everyone's anxiety is bad for them. For example, for me, my anxiety was yelling at me to be like, no, you need to listen to me. You need to, like, because my anxiety was saying, hey, something is going to try to overtake you, and you can't let that keep happening. Like my anger was telling me the same shit, and like maybe for some people the anxiety is over lack of control. Also, that's what my anxiety was essentially. Like either way, that was actually still the same message. Like, hey, you're being controlled. There's lack of control. There's anxiety. So yeah, okay. So both were kind of the same message. But like for me, it just kind of felt like that was not something for me to ignore or to try to overpower or to try to just like change with just movement or with just doing something that made me feel more confident. Like, again, okay, this is Probably not the best, but okay, this is how I know the type of person that I am, okay? For me, I'm not jumping to be confident right away. Does that make sense? And let me say it like this. I think that I'm talking about a certain type of confidence. I think you have confidence in your beliefs and how you feel. And so actually right now I have a certain level of confidence. So maybe what I'm trying to say is I'm not jumping to look like I have my shit together and to have a great sort of put together self-assured image to everyone right away and to look calm. So that's what I mean. Like I am not jumping to having to prioritize that because that's more for other people to me. And I think obviously in situations, for example, like work, or if I have to show up for somebody or like publicly or something, yeah, I'll do that. But I'm not like trying too hard to like make sure that my image is just like looks super self-assured and confident when really I just want to be like, yeah, I want to talk honestly about what's going on in my life. Like, and for me, I don't need to emphasize that as much as I need to emphasize, like, I want to understand and, like, feel what I'm feeling. So I'm obviously very, like, internal and sort of introverted, but there's also just a lot of, like, I feel like I've been spending so much of my life catching up to myself, catching up with myself. Does that make sense? Kind of like what I said earlier. It's like, I love to sort of like really sit down and coach myself because it's just like I really want to like chat with my anxiety, like because she and I wanted to talk, and so did my anger, and so did the sadness, which I don't have an alliteration for. I'm still thinking about it. Maybe I'll get it at the end here. But like I would love it if more people just like trusted their body more. That is what we keep missing. I feel like we all just keep trying to fix our bodies, and not just like externally, but I mean like we are over fixing, in my opinion, when we have feelings. Even if, for example, this is a delicate topic, but when it comes to trauma healing, there is a lot of emphasis on making sure that person feels calm. And obviously, that's because there is a direct trigger that, for example, in cases of like extreme abuse, or like if there was like kidnapping, if there was like something really sort of like malevolently like traumatic or abusive, I don't think there is that much room to be like, oh, understand where that person came from or do that. Like, I think that's where we shit on that. And then we're like, okay, no, this person deserves to be calm and they get to feel calm. And then there's other types of sort of trauma or things that we carry that are a little bit more like, yes, you want to feel calm, but also there were valid emotions that maybe got buried, that maybe tweaked how you were or like how you acted, to the point where we want to hear out those emotions because maybe there are some buried messages in there. Where, for example, if you were literally someone who was, okay, terrible example, but okay, I'm knocking on one here, but like, not that I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, for example, if you were like kidnapped by a serial killer, like, there's just there is just trauma. There is just like someone is attacking to you, and there's not like an underlying sort of like that's just like straight up like shit happened at you, and we want you to calm down now. Like, we want you to not feel like everything's going to attack you as much anymore, and when it gets like a little bit more like, let's say, emotionally manipulative, obviously there's parts of that there, but I think that there's a part of it where, especially if it's emotional, especially if there's a lot of like verbal like manipulation, if there was a lot of control, especially if it was things like it was like a toxic ex or boyfriend, but like they were really charming at first, but it wasn't like overtly like violent or anything, like there is a lot to unpack emotionally. And that's why that in that case, to me, you would talk and break down sort of like well, some of your emotions, some of that anxiety was you trying to remember what you were actually feeling or what you wanted to say. Some of that anger was valid. Anytime you were emotionally reacting, that was valid. And so when you kind of have it at that, I don't want to say level, but like that type of sort of trauma healing, there is a lot of oh, you there are parts of you that you want to uncover, that you wanted to that you want to hear out because they never got to because they were confused. So let's say gaslighting. Say, there you go. That's the word for it. Like if you were gaslit a lot, like I think there is reason to sort of really sit and chat with those parts of yourself. Now, what I feel is different though, for example, I know I started by talking about this and I didn't really talk about it afterwards, but like what's different when like between like regular therapy versus like coaching or like let's say somatic therapy, like there's parts of it where we don't have to sit and analyze and overlabel things. So that's why, God, it's hilarious because I've been playing around with the idea of should I become a licensed therapist? Like that would be wonderful for like the insurance and the like access to jobs and like groups and like immediate clients, but at this moment in time, I don't fully want to learn that method, even though I think it may be more progressed and I confuse it with something. So I don't know if that'll progress or change later, but I like the idea of going more so the spiritual coaching route because it's a lot more to me about connecting to your body and to your soul and to the universe rather than trying to fit you into labels and an archetype. And to me, I feel like it's more effective and it's more holistic, obviously. So that's why I've kind of gone the alternative, like sort of wellness routes that I have. And I'm really glad that I have because I do feel like these are the things that are not just laced in the human mind or the human ego. Not that I'm villainizing the mind, but I'm saying I think that we don't trust things beyond what our ego can understand. And that's unfortunate because the rest of the world is what beyond is beyond what your ego can understand. Does that make sense? Like the rest of what the universe made, the karma and the law of balance that it created is not something for you and your ego to override or to control. You actually just need to work with it. And that's the part of, you as a holistic being that I think needs to be connected back to for a lot of us. I don't think that we have tuned into our full selves, and we've only tuned into the sort of overly policed, overly labeled, aware parts of ourselves that just like, tried to mask us and tried to contain our feelings. And I think it's so unfortunate because there's so much that our body can do and is capable of that. And there's so many, like, your connection with your body is lost a lot of the times when you're not allowing yourself things as simple as just the ability to cry, you know? Like the more that we dissociate, the more we over control. And, I just think that like, I know I've been harping on this for like since I started this podcast, but I think that's the whole point of this podcast. It's that I don't understand why we see parts of ourselves as wrong. Do you know what I mean? Again, going back to like anxiousness or depression or I don't know, stress, like, oh, that emotion was wrong. Like, do people really not see that is just there to balance you out, to tell you what is not balanced? It really astounds me that goes over someone's head, but that's what we see a lot in the world. Like a resource, a thing that you have the ability to do, like something that your body does, like, and things that grow on this earth, like natural resources that could be our medicine, like things like that we sort of overlook, and we're like, but the human ego can't control that, or like that's too esoteric or spiritual of a topic, so I can't trust it. And what is it that you're not trusting? That your body has a natural inclination to having different emotions that signal messages to you, or like you have a hard time understanding that maybe like being in nature, or like God forbid that a crystal could affect you emotionally. Like most people are like, that's so fucking stupid. And you know why? Because your ego can't, first of all, prove it. I mean, it could kind of by emotion if you want to believe your emotions, but it can't, your ego can't like be in control of it, you know, just like your ego can't be in control of nature. And like, I don't know. I know I'm like going off now, but I'm just like, I just think that we are doing too much to avoid the sort of natural things and the sort of what I want to call the spiritual things, the other things that balance out our life. And we are ignoring it in the name of trying to control and to try to let our egos be in control. I don't know. But okay, no, I do know, obviously. That's why I like talked about all this shit for like 15 minutes. But anyway, I had all these thoughts today because okay, I was originally talking about, see, this is where I know that I'm just like, yeah, sidebar, I don't know if I said this yet on this podcast, but I don't know that I would call this overthinking. It's like by default ruminating, but it's because my thought, I just can have all these thoughts. Like I don't know, to me it's funny because I do believe that I'm on the autism spectrum, and I do believe that that just gives me like constant connections and a constant train of thought, and it's just how I'm wired to think. And it's not that I'm overthinking, it's that it's just on already. Does that make sense? That's just the function. So it is, the effort to be made to focus is a little bit hard, or to like slow down is a little bit hard actually. So, but I can replace that with sort of like feeling into my body, which is what I have been doing. But yeah, anyway, I, it's been great though, because this past year I've been really like connecting back to myself. And it's funny how like sort of your healing process and your awareness process just continues getting deeper, you know? And that's what it felt like this year, but I also feel like I've gotten to huge depths, or like the core of a lot of things now, to the point where I actually can sort of translate this to helping other people. And I think that I was unsure about that before, and I think it's because, you know, and I could have done this the whole time anyway. I could have done both simultaneously, but I also don't think I could have personally for just me, because like I don't think that I have the energy to hold both of those things and to do that much. I think for my type of person, my energy type, you know, I think I had to go internally first to not feel exhausted and to not get confused. So for me, this is actually what was right for my body, and I trust that. And I think what I would like to help guide people to is to that real trust and relationship that they could have with their body, kind of like I do with mine, where it's like you can tune in, you know, you're not like overriding things. Not that, see, I gotta work on that though. Like, not, I don't exactly know how to form this yet, but this is the sort of messaging that I would want to have, which is just like, I would like you to feel safe and trusting that your body is not malfunctioning most of the time, you know, like, and it's fine, and you don't have to like self like deprecate or like hate yourself every time it doesn't act in a way that is pleasing to other people. It's acting sort of perfectly for what it's given and the environments and the things that it's being fed, literally and figuratively, you know. But anyway, so right now I'm trying to like really just tap in to just me, and like really understand like what it is that like my body has been trying to tell me my whole life. And it's, yeah, it's been great, you know. And it's a lot of sort of like alone time, you know, that I need to do, but sometimes, you know, that can also mean like stepping out in nature, like doing other stuff. And I think that it's really fueling my creative side too, where I just kind of feel like I started singing more. I feel like I can channel this into writing more songs. I can like, obviously like do more podcast wise, but I noticed lately for me that even just like business or creating wise, like I think I hit a certain point. I've talked about this before, so I guess it's the extension of these thoughts, but I hit a certain point when I learn, for example, screenwriting, where I'm just like, at this point, it gets so sort of technical where I don't feel very connected to the deeper meaning. And now I'm just trying to like check off like plot points and stuff like that, And so I like when people like guide you to just listening to your own inner voice as opposed to just following rules, because for example, like I found this great um screenwriting and general writing course by a woman called Ella Tier. Lovely. Like she has a YouTube channel, I'll link to it below, but she like talks a little bit more about kind of like that emotional piece, like understanding how to start writing intuitively. Like she does this thing where she was just like, do a splashdown, right? Where you don't edit it first, because writing is actually, the process of writing a thing is actually two different processes. One of them is writing and one of them is editing. Don't edit when you're trying to write. Edit after you've written, because then you want something to kind of happen more organically, and then you can kind of sit back and understand why or what you were doing, And also, she just kind of talks about like getting to know your characters. For me, it's screenwriting, but I don't know in other types of writing. But like for me in screenwriting, she was just like, write one off scenes that aren't necessarily going to be part of your plot, but for you to get to know your character. Like she has all these different prompts, and I think it's really awesome because it's basically just saying like, build out your sort of relationship with like what that person's character. And like, yeah, and I think especially, bitch, I've met a lot of film bros, which is gender neutral in my head, but a lot of like people who are so like, oh, you haven't seen all these Scorsese movies, you can't call yourself someone who loves film, And it's just like, it's funny because I'm one of those people who I may not have learned, for example, the rule of thirds when it comes to photography or videography, but I would have just intuitively been like, I like how this looks, so I'm going to frame it this way. And then someone would come around and be like, you mean the rule of thirds? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, well, and I'd be like, well, I didn't need to learn it to do it. And that is usually how it works for me whenever I do something creative, because at a certain point I'm just like, because it's funny because like things like that, this is what always bothers me, and this must be the Aquarius in me, but it's like, or like, sorry, I don't know if that made sense, but yeah, no. So it's definitely in my head the Aquarius in me that gets bothered by this sort of thing, because it's just kind of like, you learned a creative, like, I don't know, a creative way of doing, like, okay, how do I put this? I think you know what I'm trying to say, but like either way is fine, but I'm just kind of saying like, let's say taking the rule of thirds example, yeah, you learn one creative trick. And for some reason, because a lot of people wanted to emulate that creative trick, it became a standard sort of trick that you could try. And that was the only reason for it. Like, I don't think there was there could have been a survey or something that got a bunch of people and they were like, yes, the majority love the rule of thirds. But overall, that's not a rule that you have to follow. And someone just decided that and it caught on. And that's a lot of creativity. Like, for example, right now, like, there's still the standard, like, songwriting structure. And some people break it and it's just kind of like, yeah, because y'all just did that same structure forever just because a lot of people just ended up liking it. There's probably so many other variations that people will end up liking, which we've done before, obviously. But I mean, like, there are infinite things, but only a couple of things catch on, and that becomes the rule. Especially in creative, like the creative realm, there's so many different things that you could do. And if you're just like, no, but you didn't learn this one, like, yes, learn that one. Also, listen to what you intuitively could do. And this is what drives me nuts, because I feel like, again, when I learn something too closely, especially because I'm more in the intuitive and like creative realm, right? So that's why, like, I'm not going to be like, let me creatively like learn how to build a house. Like, let's safely build a house, But like for me, I'm like, I don't like, it's not, I don't think I'm gonna like damage anyone by like loosening the sort of like screenwriting structure. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm going to like, and what's funny is it's gotten to a point where it's just like, is it because we think it works the best to have a 5-act or 3-act or whatever structure, and to have the sort of like rising action and the climax and the falling action? Or is it just because we've seen that before and it keeps working? I'm not saying I'm trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm saying I'm trying to intuitively understand what I would like to say. And that's all I really mean. And so the same thing goes for like starting a business. So as I'm like learning about like how to network and like how, well, no, I've always known sort of how to network, but I mean like how to now build my own sort of spiritual independent business. It's just kind of like, and I even work in social media right now, basically. So I learn a lot of tricks and a lot of the sort of, but like it's hilarious because specifically I've been learning a lot more about YouTube, and at the end of the day the experts are just like, no, it's psychology. Like, no, just pay attention to human behavior. And it's like, yeah, thank you. Because, and that's what generally marketing and business feels like, honestly. So I would say in business, almost there's a little bit of room to do it quote unquote creatively, but let's say it's a little bit more psychologically and intuitive, which you can be creative with. But I just feel like there's so many, especially now, like things that are like learn how to get your first 20 clients in like 10 days, and like, or learn how to do this. I have the one thing. And there's, the thing is a lot of those things will help for certain people. And it's that you have to weed through all of the advice, all of the trainings, all of the different things that work for different spectrums and types of people, and find what's right for you, And so for me, at least, like, I've gone through a couple of different things just in my life where I'm just like, that wasn't for me. That like I'm not the type of person where a lot of things work for me. I think that at its core came from being neurodivergent and hypermobile, but that kind of spread out to sort of me like personally, and like how I learn things socially, and like how I learn information. So I just know for me, like, and I don't know how I'm gonna like really translate this to like how it helps me specifically neurodivergently or whatever. I think I would like to uncover that, but I think without having to label it or trying to do it, learn it correctly, like I would like to, as I've been saying, understand what feels the best to my body to do. And also that can ebb and flow as I grow anyway. So it's not going to always stay that way. Like I say now where I need to slow down and be more intuitive and listen to my body, but I could evolve and grow and also be out of a certain phase or be in a new era where I'm like, now I want to take in everything externally. Now I need a lot more people. That's going to ebb and flow. But it's also nice to ask yourself, what season of your life are you in for this? Or like, what is it that feels like you like to learn more? What part of you feels like it wants to be expanded or kind of balanced out, So it's important we take into account where we are at now. And I feel like that becomes the last thing a lot whenever we learn something new. It's always just like, keep up with everybody else, learn at everybody else's pace. Everybody learn at the same pace, do it. And it's like, we're all different types of people with different types of energies, Well, anyway, so huge mind dump. Didn't think that was going to be an hour, but it happened. Yeah, so that was just kind of what I wanted to say today. Just a lot about the body and how we can connect back to it. And it's important to. Yeah, okay. Well, until next time, you know, more thoughts to come, but until next time, peace and love. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.